Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to you wherever you might be in the world, and a very special warm welcome to our three schools this morning: Tallwood Elementary, Southside Elementary, and Newland Elementary. Welcome to Safari Live. My name is Steve Falconbridge, and I'm joined on camera by the very talented Senzo Ngize. And please feel free to send through your questions and comments via your teacher. Let her know what you'd like to see and what any questions you might have. Boys and girls, we are very fortunate today. This morning, our friends were out and they found a leopard. Have a look at that. We have got a young male leopard. His name is Thamba. He's just parking out underneath this tree in the shade, and he actually killed a large female kudu sometime this morning or late last night. We are not very sure, but we have got other teams out that will be joining us shortly. On bushwalk will be Taylor, and then on drive will bushwalk will be Scott, and on drive will be Taylor. So they'll be out shortly to join us. And this is live, boys and girls, and very interactive, and your questions and comments are very important to our show. Alison would like to know what leopards eat, and they eat meat, and only meat primarily. Sometimes they might feed on some insects in dire conditions, but they feed primarily on meat in the form of small antelope, such as kudu, impala, duikers, steenbok, and all sorts of things like that. They will feed on carrion as well, so they will steal the meat from other animals. For example, one of the other males that we have here, we saw with a young buffalo at one stage, which is quite bizarre, because buffalo are very, very big animals. But isn't he beautiful? He's just relaxing in the shade. He's panting. We are going to stay here with this leopard for quite some time, so please send your questions through about leopards, see if we can answer them. And while we do so, we're going to go over to my good friend Taylor McCurdy, who would also like to say good afternoon.
Hello to all of the schools that have joined us today. My goodness, I feel like we're very lucky that so many of you are on board. My name is Taylor, and on camera with me is David, and we're also going to be looking for leopards. Who knows, the area that we're going into, we could also maybe see some lions, perhaps some elephants, maybe some warthogs, some pumbas. Though we're not really sure what we're going to find today, but that's the coolest thing about going out on a safari. And like Steve said, if you have any questions, it doesn't even have to be about a leopard. You can ask your teacher. Now, Kalia, you're wondering, what is the weather like? It's interesting at the moment. I'm going to stop because it's a strange day out here in South Africa. So you can see there's some blue sky with some clouds, and the trees are moving. So it's a little bit windy, but it's not too cold. It's quite warm. I think it must be about 89 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere around there, maybe even a little bit warmer. I've forgotten what the weather is. And we had lots and lots of rain yesterday. We had a huge thunderstorm. And we had lots of lightning as also. I'm wondering if we're going to get the same thing today. But I don't know. I haven't seen any really, really big storm clouds just yet. But the weather changes really quickly out here. I would really like some more rain, though. That would be the best thing ever, if we could. Now, Jalea, you're wondering how many seasons are there? Well, I suppose it's the same all over the world. So at the moment, we're entering autumn. We are entering autumn. Summer is finished now, and then we're going to have winter. Winter's very cold here. It's probably not as cold as what you've experienced, but when you're out in an open safari vehicle, before the sun has even risen, it's quite chilly. And then we don't have any rain at all in the winter months. Well, we shouldn't have any rain. And then all this lovely green vegetation, it disappears. Can you believe it? There's no grass, there's no leaves on the trees. It's like it becomes like a desert. And then of course we have spring, which is normally very windy. So August and September, or end of August and then into spring into September are normally quite windy months into this area. Whew. And then the heat comes. The heat is so hot. Like the other day, it was 35 degrees Celsius. So that must have been just over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, or close to it at least. It was really, really hot and humid. So not only are you baking in the sun, now you can't even sweat properly because there's so much moisture in the air already. So that's the seasons. We've got the same ones as you, might just be slightly different and at different times of the year. But we're going to keep on going to find our leopard or perhaps some lions. Steve's beaten us all to it, and he's got Thamba.
Look at what we have managed to find, boys and girls. The leopard killed a very large female kudu. And what you are seeing there, and this is not for sensitive viewers, I'm afraid, there are lots and lots and lots of flies busy feeding on the female herself. That is her head, in fact. And the flies themselves will lay eggs in the meat, and they will actually eat quite a huge proportion of that meat before the leopard is able to finish it. Sorry about the pole. We do have a roof on in case of some rain. AJ would like to know how old Thamba is, and he's probably close to 2 years at the moment, nearly 2. I'm not sure exactly the date, but he's a little bit younger than another boy that we have nearby, Hosanna, who turned 2 last month. And there he is. Isn't he beautiful? If you compare the size of him and this kudu, it is phenomenal. The size difference, how he managed to take that down, is very, very good. It's a really big kudu female. There's lots and lots of meat for him to feed on. But the problem is it's too big an animal for him to take up the tree. And if he can't take it up the tree, we are going to see hyena and possibly even lion coming this evening to steal it from him. So we're going to go back up to Taylor, who's got something that's normally part of the leopard's diet, not kudu, something a bit smaller.
We've actually got 2 things. In fact, we've got the wildebeest, which might be a little bit too big for a young or even an adult leopard to take down. And he's on his own, so he better watch out for the lions because he's entering lion territory. Woo, and there comes some bouncing impala. And those are antelope, and that's what Steve was talking about. That's actually what the leopards love to eat here in the Sabi sand. That's their favorite thing, and there's some little ones there too who would make for a very, very easy meal because they're not very experienced in jumping around. Wee, bounce, bounce. And they're very good at jumping too. The impala are the long-distance jumping champions of the antelope species that we get in this area. They can leap huge distances, and they normally do that if, say, something like a leopard or a lion is in the area and they want to try and sort of show that predator, so the leopard or the lion, that they're big and strong and they're faster and they can jump higher and they're way more athletic than they think. And then they'll do that, and then the leopard and the lion will go, oh, man, I'm never going to catch them now, and then have to go hungry. The wildebeest, very clever of him to be following the impala herd because, well, to be honest, wildebeest are like the clowns of the bush, but they're also not the most intelligent of the animals out here. And he hasn't got the greatest senses too. Impala have got very, very, very good eyesight, so they can see very far away, and they often spot all the predators, all the things that are going to try and eat them. And then when they do that, they'll shout. They'll go, hey, leopard, hey, hey, there's a leopard. Everybody seen the leopard? Or the lion? Whatever it may be. And then that wildebeest will go, because he'll still be eating, he'll go, oh, what y'all talking about? A leopard? There's a leopard here? Really? And then that's why he's following them around, because he feels safe around them, because they help him spot all the predators. Because it's not nice living on your own. You can see all the impala have got the brothers and sisters together and the mothers. But the wildebeest, he's on his own. He lives by himself. He's still waiting for his family to come back around. Now, Maxwell, as we're sitting out here in the wilderness, you're wondering if it's scary. No, it's not that scary. In the beginning, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, I must tell you, like when an elephant comes up to your car. But because I've been doing this for so many years, I'm kind of used to it. David, do you get scared? No. David doesn't get scared anymore. So it's just because we've been out here for such a long time and going on safari, we're kind of used to the animals. But that can also be a little bit of a problem, because if you get too used to the animals, you're not going to have a clue if, well, maybe a leopard decides it doesn't like you very much, or a lion or even an elephant says, I don't like you anymore, and you can really get hurt. But that's why we are trained safari guides. So we have been watching the animals for many, many, many years, and we can tell when they're going to do something bad. So an animal won't just attack you. That's the most important thing. You'll probably have to do something ugly to the animal for it to want to be ugly back to you. And we can read these signs. Oh, there's the big male impala. So there's the father of the herd. Off he goes, bouncing away. So you see how he's waited at the back, making sure all the girls and the little ones went up ahead. Now, Tallwood Elementary, a great question from all of the students today. You're wondering how far can these impala leap? Well, they can jump 10 meters at a sort of full sprint in length. So what's that, about 30 feet or so? That's a very, very far way away, don't you think? But that's only when they're running as fast as they can run, and then they spring into the air, and then they can bounce quite high as well. It's really quite funny to watch, and you were lucky that you got to see a little bit of it too this afternoon. You saw them jumping around. We don't get to see that all the time. Look at him, he's looking at us. You keep away from my ladies, is what he's saying. And he's also keeping an eye out for any leopards or any other predators that may want to attack his girls. Ooh. Donnie, now you want to know how long can those impalas run around and leap for before they get tired? Well, the great thing about an impala, and even that wildebeest, is they have got a lot of stamina. So if you think of somebody that runs long distances, so they can go and run 10 kilometers and not even break into a sweat, that's not me. I think I'd be more like the leopard or the lion. I'd only be able to run for a short distance before I'm exhausted. So they can go and go and go. I wouldn't be able to tell you an exact amount of how far they can run before they're exhausted, but I promise you, it's a lot longer than we could even dream of being able to run. But let's go on. They've all gone away now into the bushes, so we'll see what else we can find down the way. We're getting closer to that area of the leopard. Now, you haven't met Scott just yet. Scott's doing something quite funny today. He's out on a bushwalk, so he's walking around with all these animals. Don't you think that's crazy? Scott's a little bit crazy too, so let's go and see what animal he's found.
Well, I'm actually not even walking around at the moment. I'm lying down next to a tortoise. And how cool is this? This is a massive leopard tortoise, and it's called a leopard tortoise because of all the fancy colorations on its shell, which look quite similar to a leopard's camouflage. And you guys have got so lucky and already seen Thamba the leopard. Now, as Taylor said, my name is Scott, and I'm really, really happy that we've got off to such a good start on the bushwalk. We actually were hoping on finding a female leopard. In fact, it's Thamba's mother, and she's got a new baby now, and we're hoping on finding the two of them. Hello, Torty. Don't be scared. But this is a good lesson to everyone, and that is that wild animals are ordinarily quite scared of us as humans. And that's why this tortoise, even though we're not going to do anything to it, and even though I'm not really moving too much, it keeps popping its head back into the shell. It's a huge, huge specimen, and it seems like it's charging straight towards Seb and the camera. And this is one of the biggest leopard tortoises I've ever seen here on Djuma. And isn't it interesting how they move along? They've got quite long toenails, you'll see, good grip, and they can go just about anywhere. You'll also notice quite a lot of mud on it, and that's probably because it was in a muddy wallow taking a drink, and that was actually just behind us. We saw it crossing the road. Cool, well, we don't want to give it too much of a hard time. You could see it was a little bit nervous of us, so we're going to continue on our walk. We've just left the vehicle behind us. We've driven into an area where we're a little bit closer to where we're hoping on finding, like I said, Thamba's mother and her new baby. So that's exciting stuff. Steve actually had some of her footprints moving down one of the roads this morning. So we're heading into that area to see if we can continue the search. Diamond, you would like to know, how do animals survive the storms out here? Well, animals are a lot more tough than humans. We've become quite weak. We used to be tough many, many hundreds and thousands of years ago when we used to live in caves and wear no clothes. But now we've become a little bit weak. Our brains have got bigger, but our bodies have become a bit weaker.
and the animals are very, very tough. They don't really have anywhere to go. There's nowhere to hide in a storm other than, under a little bush like this. But you're still going to get wet. It's just going to kind of help a little bit. And yesterday we did have quite a big storm, not for very long, but most of the animals will get soaked, and they actually usually kind of enjoy it. You can tell that the animals, it's almost like how you feel fresh after having a shower or a bath. All the animals have got a bit of a spring in their step after the storm. Very good. We're going to continue searching for Thamba's mom and send you back to him with Steve.
Thank you, Scotty. Be safe out there on foot, my friend. It is a jungle out there. Here we are with Thamba again. He is enjoying the shade. It's not a very hot afternoon. It's only 84 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius. And he has eaten a little bit of meat, but he is not full by all means. We have another vehicle in the sighting. They are from one of the landowners from north of us. So if you hear a vehicle, that would be him. Quite a few vehicles do come in and out of these areas on safari. William would like to know how long leopards live for. In the wild, male leopards probably live for about 10 to 12 years, maybe 13, whereas females can live up to 15, 16 years of age. That is with all natural things happening, but there is lots of competition out here. Leopards run the risk always of getting into trouble with lions, hyena, and other leopards. But they are very, very strong and adaptable animals, so those years, I said, are generally what happens, but sometimes they get caught by lions or hyena, and if they get injured in any way, it makes life very difficult. There's a question there about, do any other animals eat leopards? Well, I have seen Malachi, hello Malachi, I have not seen anything eating leopards, but I have heard that hyenas will eat a dead leopard. Some leopards will eat other leopard cubs. They will kill them. It's a very sad story, but it is part of what happens. And also I've seen a documentary on when a really big snake, a python, killed a baby leopard, and then the mother killed the snake, took the baby out of its belly, and then ate the baby. So very sad story, but not many animals do eat leopards, but it does happen from time to time. So we are with this leopard, and I thought I might show you a little picture of what the kudu looks like once we get a good view of him in his spots. Just come back to the dashboard here, and you can see the kudu. Here at the bottom, we've got the female kudus. Aren't they beautiful? That's what they look like when they're alive. Quite large. They stand about 1.5 meters, and they can get up to about 400, almost 500 pounds, which is a very, very big animal. This female here probably weighs about 300 pounds, and the leopard only weighs about 160. So you can imagine the battle that would have ensued with this male trying to kill this female. And there's a lot of meat for him. You see the male on the right with the big horns, and the female without the horns. So Nick, the reason why he's breathing so hard is because he is relatively hot because of the sun, and also the breathing helps in digestion. His metabolism is speeding up. He's got a belly full of protein, full of protein, and so he's panting and absorbing and using lots of water to try and break down the full belly of meat that he has there. It's quite common in cats to pant like that. Also helps with him cooling down. Zia, would you like to know if leopards swim? It's not very common for them to swim. They don't like water, as most cats don't like water. Leopards I've seen before walking along a road, and the road had a small river stream that crossed over it after a lot of rain, and I watched this leopard look at the water and hiss and spit and growl at the water. It wasn't very keen to jump over or to get its feet wet. so they don't really enjoy the water, so not swimmers at all. But there are stories of leopards getting in the water, but I haven't seen an adult. I once was very fortunate to see a cub playing near a little pond with its mother, and it got very excited and ended up jumping and falling into the pond, and then had the fright of its life as it tried to claw its way out to the other side. It didn't look very happy. It lost about half of its size because it was drenched with water, and then shook itself off and looked very sad, while its mother didn't seem to pay too much attention. You can see he's swatting at his face. All these flies are quite annoying for him. He just has to flick the ears and swat at them with his paw. Isn't he beautiful? So while we stay here staring at a leopard under a bush, I believe Scott, who's on foot, is walking around a big bush himself.
I am walking around indeed, and I'm making my way up this termite mound. How cool is this? It's huge! I must be about 3 or 4 meters above the ground here, and can you believe that such tiny little insects working as a team have built this massive, massive castle, and it's rock solid. I mean, it's absolutely awesome, and it's still active. There'll be millions and millions of termites living in here. I'm just putting my hands over one of the little holes here to see if I can feel any cool air or warm air coming out of there. And they can actually do a very clever thing. They can eat all the grass and all the plants that the other animals don't like eating, because they've already died and they're not very tasty anymore, which means if the termites weren't here, nobody would touch it and there'd just be dead stuff everywhere. So it's a good example of how the termites are hugely important with recycling parts of the vegetation that the other animals won't eat. And that way we make sure that the earth stays rich in nutrients, so that all this green grass has nutrients to grow. It's also a good vantage point just to climb up there, look around a little bit. Jalen, good to have you on safari with us. You would like to know, where do the animals get their water? Well, they're quite lucky here, especially at the moment, because there's been lots of rain. So you get lots of little puddles, even sometimes on the roads. And there are a few dams. Also in this reserve there's 2 rivers that flow through it. Not in our area, but not too far from here. So there's lots of water around for them to drink. But there are times of the year in winter when we don't get much rain, where it becomes a little bit more difficult for them. But I've even seen animals like a chameleon, for example, drinking the little drops of rain off the leaves after it's rained. So it all depends on the animal. Some animals can move far quickly and others can't. Very good. Well, just like we are searching for a leopard, so is Taylor, so why don't you guys hop on board with her and see if all of your eyes can help her find it.
I hope so, that you've all got your eyes wide open trying to find a leopard, because I can't seem to see one here. But let me tell you, if they're laying in that grass, we could drive straight past them and not even know. But the male leopard that we're looking for, he goes by a name of Hukumuri. And speaking of eyesight, Layla, you're wondering how good is the leopard's eyesight? Well, a lion's eyesight is about 8 times better than ours. So I would say it's somewhere around the same. So very, very good. Layla, their eyesight is so good that they can see in the dark. I can't see in the dark. Can you see in the dark? I wasn't a very good child. I didn't eat all the carrots when my mom told me to. So hopefully that will inspire you all to find carrots delicious. So you eat all your vegetables. It gives you very, very good eyesight. So we're just scanning. And I'm looking everywhere. I'm not just looking on the floor. I'm looking in the tops of the trees. I'm looking on termite mounds. I'm looking underneath the trees because it has been hot today. But I don't know where he's gone. Now, Quentin, here's a question that is actually very difficult to answer, because you're wondering how many leopards do we have in this area or on the safari. Well, I suppose on the safari it depends how many you can find. Sometimes it's very difficult and we don't find any leopards at all. So you were lucky to see Thamba already. And the amount of leopards that are in the Sabi sand, I don't know, because they can also go into the Kruger National Park. Leopards can jump over the big fences that are surrounding these areas. It's almost impossible to keep them in. So there could be 100, there could be 150, there could be 300. Some days there might be only 199. It's very difficult to tell. And I actually don't know what the last census was. So they come here, they do amazing things. They go up in helicopters and they fly around. They drive in cars. They walk on foot and they try and count as many of the animals as they can. But it's not very accurate though, so they don't really get a good idea because animals can hide. Animals can leave the property and come back whenever they want. So it's a little bit difficult. Sure, Scott's on a roll today, finding all the small cool things for you to see. He's got some ants now.
Yes, we've got many ants, and these are called drop-tail ants. You can see they've got quite a big bottom, hence the name drop-tail. And some of them have managed to raid what looks like a nest of another animal. You can see they've got a small yellow grub there. The two of them are busy having a tug-of-war over. And I've noticed quite a few of them with the same little grub. I'm not sure where they're finding them, but they found some food. And just like I said earlier, termites feed on grass, but these are ants and they are carnivorous. You do get some ants that also like to feed on vegetation, but they mainly like to eat other animals. And they are helping keep down the insect numbers for us. And what's interesting is if we look over here, we can actually see their holes which go down into the ground. They've got two different holes here, which a whole bunch of these little animals are coming out of. There we go. How cool is this? All working hard, and like I said earlier, teamwork is often very, very useful because by them all working together, they obviously increase their strength as a team. And you can see quite clearly that they are all going about their business, working hard to make sure that there's enough food for the colony. Awesome stuff. Oh, here comes another one, Seb, with another little wormy kind of grub. Look, let's watch this one. We're going to see it go straight down the hole here. This guy's heading straight down to the hole. Oh, did he miss the hole? He missed the hole. You were right there, buddy. Now you're going the wrong way. Have you got confused by all your friends? Oh, another tug of war. Now, I guess sometimes they're all wanting to work too much together without probably communicating, and that's why there's a little bit of confusion here. How cool is this? Shame that little worm is still alive, though. You can probably see it wriggling. Not a good way to go. Now, those little ants have got nasty little pincers. Even if they were to bite me, I would go, ouch! Because they are quite powerful, especially considering how small they are. And, oh, there we go. No, straight past the hole again. He almost walked over it. Now, also what's fascinating is that ants are very, very strong. And these grubs are bigger than the other ones. I didn't get your name clearly. I think it's Torwich, but you would like to know, why are some ants... Oh, from Torwood Elementary. So from your entire class, you would like to know, why are the ants different sizes? Well, that's because you get different types of ants. You get soldier ants and worker ants, and I'm guessing that the smaller ones are the workers, and the bigger ones are the soldiers. So quite often you get different types of ants. They're the same family, but they've got different roles. Just like with us, sometimes people are security guards for us, so like people are policemen, and some people are the farmers, and it's the same with these colonies of ants. The different individuals have got different roles and also slightly different body sizes. Incredible. Now, it's interesting, when you stop in one place and start looking around, you can often see some other interesting things. And I've just noticed we're sitting on a pile of what could be some leopard poo. So why don't you take a look over here? You can see it's gone very white, all these little blobs here. And if you look closely at them, you'll notice that there's little hairs sticking out of them, and that indicates to me that it's a leopard rather than a hyena, because the hyena's digestive juices are so strong that anything that they put into their stomach, they completely dissolve, so you wouldn't see hairs in that. And another telltale thing that I've seen up over here is a little piece of bone. Again, hyena's stomach is very strong, and they can even dissolve bone when they swallow it, but the leopards and lions can't. So there's a little piece of bone. It's not very fresh. When the dung is fresh, it'll be black. It's only because it's been sitting out in the sun for so long. And who knows, maybe this is an old poop from Tundi, the same leopard that we're looking for. We're going to continue going down this road where Steve had the tracks this morning and send you back to Steve with his leopard.
Thank you very much, Scotty. And we are still with Thamba, the beautiful leopard male, who's, as I said, about 2 years of age, and he hasn't done too much since we've been here, apart from just swat a few flies. But that is what cats like this do. They spend a lot of their time sleeping. Isn't that a wonderful idea? They don't have to go to school, they don't have to do any homework. Stephanie would like to know when animals sleep. Do they sleep in the morning or at night? Well, essentially leopards will sleep whenever they want to. The only thing that makes them move is when they get hungry or when they get thirsty. And if possibly a lion comes along, they might move. But if not, they just lie down and relax. If they've managed to secure some food and they're not too far from water, they won't do too much for a very long time. But we are definitely going to see some activity around this evening. The smell is very, very strong. That Kudu female smells very, very, very ripe would be the word. And we have moved to get in the right position for the wind. Because it's important if you park at a place like this that the wind isn't blowing the smell of the very dead animal into our noses. It allows us to sit here for a little bit longer. But that smell will catch on the wind, and hyenas and lions will find it and they will come looking. Serena, all leopards have different spot patterns. They're all unique, like our fingerprints. And quite a few of the viewers out there actually have all of these spot patterns on record. And some of them are on the belly, some are on the back leg, some are on the shoulder. But what we use quite regularly is on his face. There's a couple spots on the face that are very characteristic in leopards. You can just see it there, but it's not very clear. So I will show you this front page of my book to give you a very clear understanding of what I'm talking about. This is the front cover of the book, and here you can see these spots over there. There's 1, 2, and 3, and this side 1, 2, and sort of like 3.5 there. Those are the spot patterns that we normally look for, and then slowly over time you can start getting differences in these little eyebrow lines over here, and they're all unique to different leopards. And when you spend enough time with them, you can see them. And from a very young age, leopards develop those spot patterns and they stay with them for life. The only thing that changes is the spots become more like rosettes, as we can see on his body there. Rosettes because the black spot actually expands into sort of like a rose. Can you see that? Right in the middle of the screen, you get that sort of black spot with a bit of brownish gold in the middle. That probably early on in its life was one solid black spot, which is now expanded. And the purpose of these spots is for camouflage. Leopards are the stalk and stealth specialist of the bush, and they are very, very difficult to see. I mean, we're only about 7 or 8 yards away from this leopard, and if Senzo just pans right out, have a look at that. It would be very hard to see if you're walking along here, wouldn't it? Torwood Elementary would like to know how long leopards stay with their mums after birth, and normally it's about 2 years, 2.5 years probably at the most. But what we're seeing here in Djuma in the Sabi Sands is the males are spending about 1.5 years or so with their mother, and then they are kind of moving off. I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that there are some elephants shouting in the background. I don't know if you can hear that. Not sure why they are shouting. It's quite far off. We might see if we can go there maybe a bit later. But they will stay with their mother for about 1.5 to 2.5 years, really depending on the leopard and the area. The males start eating a lot of food and they compete with mum. Mum has to catch lots and lots of food for a growing male. As most mothers out there would know, young boys eat a lot And young girls also eat a lot, but they seem to stay with their mother for a little bit longer. And then once after 2.5 years or so, males will start to move. They'll get pushed away. Big males in the area will see them and they'll chase them, and they'll go far, far, far away until they're bigger and strong enough to look after their own area. Whereas the young females will generally stay in the same area as the mother, sort of carving out a small piece of her land to do her sort of life. Okay, so we're going to go from this beautiful leopard and his kudu kill to Taylor with some magnificent kudu of her own.
We've got an entire family of kudu, but they don't want to stay still. Sit down, kudu. That's what my dad would say. He tells everything to sit down when it's moving. But I think if we park like this, I think we're going to get a little gap as they walk on through. Maybe even run on through. There they go. Look how big they are. Can you believe? Such a leopard caught a fully grown kudu. You'd think it would be going after some of those smaller ones. What a clever cat that was, though. Now you can see some of them have horns on their heads. Some of them don't have horns on their heads. That's how you tell the difference between the boys and girls. The boys have the horns and the girls don't. Let me go around again. I think we might see them. We're just going to play a game of cat and mouse. But John, you've asked a question about if the animals get hurt, how do they recover? So it's nature out here. It's all natural. We don't try and get involved. So the only time we will call a vet is if the animal was hurt because of a person. So if there was somebody who was bad and was trying to hunt the animal illegally, because you're not allowed to do any of that out here, there they are, then we would try and help it. Or maybe it got a snare, so a piece of wire stuck around it, then we would help it. Otherwise, we let nature take its course out here. So a young leopard that's just gone off on his own for the first time might take the opportunity, or perhaps a lion or a hyena or something like that will actually come through and then take that animal down, and that's probably the best way for it. So everything happens for a reason out here, and nobody will go hungry. They're moving again. We'll go around, we'll catch them, I promise. Have you got them? I've got one. There's one cow that's behaving. There's another one, but they're all going to run through. And the reason why I think that they are being a little bit naughty today and not wanting to sit still for all of you is because it's a bit windy. Now, when it is windy, you can imagine the leaves all rustling about. It's making quite a bit of noise, so it makes it difficult for those kudu to actually hear what's going on. So we'll go up a bit further. We'll try and catch them. Luckily, the road is on our side today. And then, when we get to the kudu, I want you all to have a look at their really big ears, okay? There they are. Maybe if I try and hide behind the bushes, it'll be a little bit better. Let's park like that. And then we'll get them moving into the gaps between the trees. Don't go away. Stay with us. No, they really don't want to be seen today, do they? I'm very unhappy. Even though kudu have got very big ears and can hear very, very well, they've also got really good eyesight. They're going to try and hide away in some of these trees, because with all the trees around, it'll be they will be sheltered from the wind, and then they can hear a little bit better. Look how they're working. Listening to the left, listening to the right. Oh, there's an oxpecker on its back. Now, Naoka, you're wondering, how do these animals survive in such hot conditions? They don't know anything different. So they're born into it. And then it's pretty crazy how it goes from being so hot and then to quite cold as well. But they're just used to it. These animals are really good at adapting to their surroundings. Here we go, we've got another chance. I'm trying to go in as quietly as I can now because they are a little bit nervous. Hi guys, please stay still. Everybody in America wants to see you. That one's shaking his head saying no. That's a bit rude. Sorry, we haven't trained our animals very well just yet. I'm just joking. We don't train them. They're all wild, so they just do what they want when they want. So there's the young boy. And soon he's going to be told he has to go and stay somewhere else. He won't be able to stay with the family anymore. Now, there's quite a few of these kudu in this family. And to me, are you wondering how many can live in a group, in a herd? Well, I suppose anywhere from 3 kudu up to about 10 kudu, maybe even a little bit more than that. But I haven't necessarily seen huge herds. I think the biggest herd I've seen, maybe it got between 15 and 20 kudu in it. And that was a massive herd. And I don't think I'd ever seen anything that large since then. So quite a few of them. I can't even tell you how many are here. Maybe there are about 10 kudu in this family, which is a decent size. The more eyes, the more ears they have, the better chances they have of escaping things like leopards and like lions. There they go, hiding away into the thick bush again. Okay, well, we're not going to bother them too much more now. They've said to us basically that they don't really want to be seen today, so I think we'll leave them in peace and carry on and continue our search for our leopard. Maybe an elephant. I would really like to find an elephant for all of you today. I think you'd quite like to see an elephant. But Steve, of course, is still sitting with Thamba as he snoozes off his big breakfast. I wonder if he's going to wake up anytime soon.
He has had a very big breakfast, and he has not managed to lift his head too much for us, but I've asked Senzo to go in onto his foot there. You can see on the pad, you see he's got the toes, so the toe pads in the front, and then in the middle of the picture is that sort of that bigger pad. It's not too easy to see, but you can see a couple little lobes there. So if now we go to my little tracking book on the front here, these are the tracks of a male leopard or of a leopard, and we can see over here, this is the front toes that I was pointing at before, and now that's the back pad. So very characteristic of cats to have these 3 lobes at the back, and the toes are separated from the back pad. There's a big space in between. And if I go over to a cheetah's got the same sort of thing there at the back with those back pads, the 3, but there's claws in the track. Oh no, Janet, leopards are nowhere near as fast as cheetah. Cheetah can run up to about 60 odd miles an hour, whereas leopards can probably only get up to about 40. So leopards are not designed, they over a short distance they can run very fast, but the whole objective for the leopard is to stalk very close to the prey animal and then explode onto them and catch them, whereas the cheetah, they chase them over a long distance, well, a relatively long distance, with a lot of speed, a lot of power. And if we look back at the track here, the toe marks or the claws here in the cheetah are like running spikes. If any of you are runners back home and you like to sprint on the track, you'll know you wear studs or spikes on your shoe to make your feet go a lot faster on the ground, and that helps the cheetah to run much faster than the leopard. But isn't he beautiful? Let's get another look at him. Kayla, we do have endangered animals. There's quite a number of them actually in Africa. One of the biggest would be the pangolin. Maybe I should show you a picture of a pangolin. Let me see where it is in this book. Rhino are also, I'm sure you know what a rhino looks like. But a pangolin, this is probably one of the most endangered animals at the moment in Africa. It's almost like an armadillo. Isn't that wonderful? And it moves around quite slowly, lots of armor on the body, and they roll up into a tight ball to protect their tummy so that animals can't eat them. I'm sure you've seen what a rhino looks like before, and rhinos are also quite endangered because of very, very silly reasons out in the world. Poaching and the use of the rhino horn, that's a very long topic to discuss. And there's a few birds as well that are endangered, but even leopards and lions are regarded as threatened in Africa. But here in South Africa, we have very healthy populations of all of them. The pangolin, the population is very low throughout Africa and even into Asia. And that's a very sad, sad story, but a very good question, because we need to conserve these animals. We need to look after them. Ah, here we go. Hello, Thamba. Come give the boys and girls a smile before they go, won't you? He's listening. So, for the schools that joined us this afternoon, I am super happy that we were able to show you this beautiful leopard, and my other friends on drive were able to show you some wonderful things. There we go. There he is. He's having a lick. So, I must thank you for your input and your comments, and thank you so much, and we'll catch up with you next time. Have a beautiful morning, and on that note, I'm going to go back over to Scott for an update.
So, we've got ourselves into an area where I'm actually sitting on a fallen down tree that both Thandi and her cub I've seen lying on in the past. And there's an area here, there's a small riverbed just off to my left where the mother Thandi often likes to stash her young cub. And because Steve had tracks of Mom heading back in this direction this morning, we thought this would be a good place to get close to this area. And no sign just yet. It's always very tricky business approaching an area like this on foot, because you have to be extra cautious. And even though we need to check as best as we can, there are some areas where simply we cannot check. It would just be too dangerous too. We wouldn't want to put Thandi in a situation where we kind of get too close to her if she is trying to hide out with the cub here. But we are checking the areas that are kind of safe to kind of sneak a peek into. Nothing just yet. But at least, you know, by coming into this area and working this area where we lost our tracks, we just increase our chances of finding her, picking up some audio from Moore's alarm calling that may spot her. So hopefully we'll get lucky. Now our signal's a little bit shaky here, so we're going to send you back over to Taylor.
Oh my goodness, sorry about that, Scotty. Hopefully the gremlins leave you alone. So, David and I, well, we didn't have much luck, unfortunately, in finding Hukumuri, but our search is not over yet. What I thought we might do, though, is we just did a big loop, checking a couple more areas to see if there are any tracks coming out, but I can't see any, so he must be in there somewhere. So, I believe there's some elephants on the dam cam. We might go and pop our noses around there. What do you think? I think so. It's quite nice to watch the elephants, and I love watching elephants. So we are heading there now. Not ready. We're not there yet. Don't get too excited. And then a little bit later, although it's nice and cool, we shall go and look for Hukumuri again. Oh, they finished drinking. That's fine. We'll catch them wherever else they go. Guess what we saw? Snake. Another black mamba. Because I saw one, not yesterday. Day before yesterday. David and I saw a big black mamba. We saw another one. I don't know how big it was. And it was just sort of sitting on the side of the road. And then I was like, ah, and stopped. And then, of course, when a snake knows it's been spotted, especially something like a black mamba, they don't normally hang around for very long. So off it slithered into the grass to never be found again. However, I did stop and stare into the grass for a little bit, hoping that I was going to see it. And then I got a fright and leaped like this into the passenger seat of the car, because it was what I thought it was the black mamba that was sitting up quite close to my face, because I was sort of staring out the car like that. It wasn't, it was just a stick. But I got such a fright, it was quite funny. So yeah, scared myself already today. Okay, let's maybe pick up the pace a bit then to catch those ellies. Because it's so windy, I'm hoping that they don't go into a drainage line or into a thicket. That will be a bit of a problem for us, as it's so thick at the moment that even the elephants just disappear. Right. Stephen has got his patient pants on, and hopefully Thamba's going to wake up and fill his gut again. But, well, while you go and have a look at him, we're going to go and try and find some elephants.
Thank you, Taylor. And I would just like to warn any sensitive viewers that Senzo and I found something here that might be quite dramatic for some of you out there. So if you're quite sensitive, look away now. But what we have found is that this female Kudu was in fact pregnant, and what is hiding just in the bushes there is her fetus. Whether it was born or not born, it is a brand spanking new Kudu. The ears are still flat, the eyes I don't know, but the hooves, I've been looking at with my binoculars, never ever touched the ground. So it never walked. So there's a couple sort of postulations going on in my head, is that the Kudu was actually giving birth at the time which allowed Thamba to sneak up on it, or there was some complications in the birth which caused the female to die, and then Thamba found her, because the smell of this animal is more than a day, definitely from yesterday or even the night before. But very, very sad that this poor little kudu, which seems to be the only thing that the leopard has really been feeding on, apart from a bit of the stomach. There's the stomach. But I wasn't here, so I don't know. I mean, maybe Thamba opened the stomach and found the fetus and then pulled it out. It's very hard to say, being the only entry wound that we can see. There are a couple marks on the below the jaw of the female where Thamba potentially might have, sorry, I might have to reposition for that, where he might have potentially got the individual just underneath the throat. But for a leopard of Thamba's size to have pulled down a kudu of this size is just, it's almost beyond belief. So whether he's strong enough to have done so, I feel there might have been some complications, because the hoofs of the baby there are very, very smooth and untouched. You look at them, they're almost waxy on the tips there, just to the left of the screen. And that is one of the things that's very important to identify in South Africa. A lot of farmers have sheep, and a lot of them always blame caracal and jackal and even leopard for the death of their sheep. And it's important when you look at a dead animal, a dead baby, to look at its hooves. If it even spent a moment walking on the ground, there would be marks on the bottom of the hoof, like the scuffing of your shoe, your brand new shoes. There would be marks there which would indicate that it had walked and stepped. But if there's absolutely no marking, and it's almost like a beautiful little wax coating, then that animal was most likely stillborn. And in this case, this animal did not step anywhere. It might have been pulled out of the tummy of the kudu. It's very hard to say. We weren't here, but it is an enormous amount of meat still available there. Carla, yes, the circle of life, but it is sad indeed. This kudu female and her youngster are going to go a long way to feeding this beautiful leopard. But what is also so awesome is we never know. We never know what might have happened here. You never know. There's lots of ideas, lots of stories that could have played out. But marvelous that Herbie and Taylor were able to find this morning. He is an absolute magician, is he not? And I believe he found it primarily by smell, which is another reason to think that this animal was dead for a day already. The flies are making good work, and what will happen within the next 8 to 9 hours is there will be maggots writhing within the wound and carcass of that kudu, and that will primarily be the major breaking down factor in the decomposition of this kudu. And as revolting as it might sound, the leopard will actually feed in there, and so will her hyena. Sorry, Kirst, I didn't get that full question. Well, Paul would like to know something that I don't really have the answer to. He wants to know if there's more nutrients in a newborn versus the adult. I don't know. I think there just might be a difference in flavor and in tenderness, but the meat itself is the same. But that is a very good question. I think a leopard would be able to consume the entire newborn because the bones would be quite soft. It wouldn't have too much of a digestive system as yet. It would be a milk tummy. So there wouldn't be much of a rumen or the contents of a rumen. So I don't know if there'd be more nutrients. He'd probably be better off eating the kudu itself because of the gut enzymes and all of the bacteria within the kudu. Sorry again about the pole there, folks. We do have the roof on in case of rain. But look how beautiful those eyelashes are. We can't get a better visual than that. But with binoculars I can see that the ears are flat back, and Thamba seems to have eaten the entire back portion of that youngster. So, as sad as it might be, we're going to continue and stay here, and we're going to go over to Scott on foot.
Welcome back, everyone. So we've moved away from the area where we know Tundi has stashed the cub in the past, and Herbert, an expert tracker and a security detail making sure we're safe, and I are moving along slowly, trying to work out exactly where Steve had these tracks this morning. We've got tracks of a male heading up this road. Very difficult to see, and I'm not even going to bother showing you in this flat light. Only a man of Herbert's skill set can actually see what's happening. It looks like I'm looking at a blank newspaper, but Herbert's really getting full detailed information by looking down at the ground. Also, what makes it kind of further tricky is that the rain that's fallen has kind of hardened the soil, most of it, a bit of a crust, and the animals aren't leaving much of a track behind as they go. So we've got our work cut out for us, but like I said a bit earlier, even if we're not necessarily on the trail, we're in the right area, and we could hear alarm calls, or maybe even the leopards vocalizing. Sinak, you'd like to know how big is a leopardess's territory in relation to a male's? Now, it all depends on, you know, the individual female, the individual male. Of course, that goes without saying. Everything, there's no set rules in nature. And just like us humans, some of us have tiny houses and some of us have got mansions. On average, though, in this area, you would have about 4 to 5 leopardess within one dominant male's territory. So that's a kind of average rule. And your average size kind of territory for a leopardess in this area is about 3 square miles. Not much bigger than that, whereas obviously the males will be about 15 square miles if it's 5 times the size of a female. So that gives you a kind of rough idea as to how much bigger the males' territories can be than the females. But you will get some areas where leopard densities are lower than here, and males and females alike will both have far bigger territories because there's less competition. So it all depends. I think we're getting onto the road where Steve initially had his tracks this morning, so it'll be nice to have a good look around here. And while we focus on that, we're going to send you back across to Taylor.
Well, I've been basically brought into this area by alarm call. Sorry, I'm focusing everybody. To that impala over there, who's staring into the thicket and calling, and so is a go-away bird, was also alarming, but now they've all stopped, typically. Just trying to see if I can hear anything. And what concerns me here is that the whole herd wasn't alarming. Just sort of 1 or 2. Let's see. Might be also the impala ram that was snorting. This is the area that Hukumuri could be in, though, which is why I stopped so quickly to come and have a little look. Can't really see through the trees, which is a problem. And there are a couple more birds sort of off to the right, and none of them seem to be making any noise whatsoever other than sort of happy chirps. Not the kind of chirps that are telling a leopard to go away, or that it's been spotted. No. Let's go back on Vuyatela axis and maybe see if there's another little route. Let's do that. Let's try. We'll do a bit of off-roading. So, it's a bit thick, and I don't really want to go driving through the impala herd and then scatter them in that direction where there are 1 or 2 that are looking and alarming. Ooh, I don't know which way to go. Let's go this way. There are many obstacles out here. So we'll try our luck a little bit further down. Sorry, Davy, I can't sit still in my chair, and I keep shuffling to different heights and sitting up. Huh. Mrs. Grumpy, full of humour today. You've said impala drama. Yeah, we hope so. It's what we like. We like the action. We like the drama. Okay, let's go up. Trying to find a gap. Okay, we're going to try find a gap to try and navigate through this thicket and see if those impala were perhaps alarming at a leopard. Let's go across to Steve to have a look at some flies.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Taylor. We have zoomed in on these blowflies, banded or regal blowflies, I'm unsure. But what they will do is within a day or two, the corpse will be covered in those maggots. Those maggots will feed extensively on the meat, and then they will drop down into the soil themselves to pupate. Take about 4 to 6 days, and they come out again as these really interesting looking flies to find yet another dead animal to decompose. Isn't that marvelous? So not only are they eating there, and by eating they will actually vomit onto the meat itself, which will break down the saliva and vomit that they throw out actually breaks down what they feed on, and then at the same time they'll mate on the carcass here and then lay eggs, and in the next few hours or so you will see it will be absolutely writhing in maggots, which is quite difficult to stomach and to watch. You see a fly's busy licking its face there. Ew, Belinda, ew. But it is part of nature. It's part of nature. Without the vultures and all those other wonderful decomposers, these flies are probably more integral than they are. And they form a resource out here. Lots of other insects and birds will feed on these flies. There'll be a purpose for the maggots as well. And the kudu will not be wasted in any way. You see they're licking their lips, so to speak. Something about vultures, Paul. There were some vultures as we came in. I'm not sure what they went to. They were sitting... Yes. Paul, apparently, Tom, who's one of the landowners, was here earlier, and he said as soon as the vultures started arriving, Thamba pulled the carcass under the tree. And there is a hooded vulture there, the one on the left, but the vultures had found it already. They were already here, but he pulled them underneath the tree to keep them from the regal eyes of these vultures. And the issue is that vultures will actually be followed. I've seen lions follow vultures. I've even seen hyena follow them, and they will quite easily help any predator to navigate towards the scene. I mean, we use vultures all the time, but it's not common for vultures to find leopard kills. And Thamba is quite a young male still, so he will learn that he'll probably lose this kill, and so it's important for him to stash the animal underneath the tree as soon as possible. And the reason he hadn't stashed it initially is probably because he didn't actually kill it on its own, or, as I said, potentially complications through birth. It's very hard to say, but very hard for him to tree an animal of this size. The unborn calf, though, very easy. But he is very content in his actions today, and he is quite content just relaxing on a very cool afternoon. Very proud of this young boy. It's my first time seeing him. Judy, why doesn't he take the fetus in the tree? I do not know. I think he's overwhelmed by the amount of meat that he has here. The fetus is very well concealed, but, I don't know why. I mean, the tree it's underneath is actually a very, very bad tree for him to have done any activity with. It's just a shade at the moment. There's nowhere for him to tree. The marula tree closest is about 50 yards away. That would be the closest and easiest one for him to drag it to. But he might at some stage, after feeding some more, drag one or two of them along. But I think he'll really struggle to drag that female kudu along with him. He's got his head up there because some of the vultures took off and flew. And they must have made a noise. It's perked up his interest. Let's go around that side and see if we can get a nice look at his face. So while we reposition to get a nice look at this beautiful... What have we got there? Okay, so, sorry. We just spotted something over here on the side of the road, of the path here. There's a pile of blood there. Can you get it, Sense? I don't think you can. That's probably where all of this took place. There's just a pile of blood there. It's possibly where he killed the kudu and then dragged it 4 or 5 meters into the bush. It's not much to see, but just a pile of sort of gory blood there. But while we reposition to get a look at Thamba and his beautiful ears, let's go over to Taylor and see what she has for you.
Well, our go-away bird was lying to us, and so were the impala. I think they were actually alarming at another impala, which was a little bit further away from the herd and just sort of standing behind a termite mound. So perhaps they saw it and weren't so sure, so just in case, they were alarming. And we're going to head down towards some elephants, which were apparently seen near Impala Plains. Now, speaking of alarming and animals that do it, Nina, you asked which alarm calls do we trust the most out here in the bush. It's a tough one here. I don't like to trust squirrels, not even a little bit. Although, yeah, no, don't trust squirrels. Guinea fowl, sometimes. Impala, kudu, bushbuck, inyala are normally pretty good and pretty accurate, and even zebra to an extent. Go-away birds, but then again, when you start moving down to the smaller animals, so like the birds, they will be alarming for a lot of different things, and the same thing goes for squirrels or for mongoose. There's an alarm for snakes, there are an alarm for birds of prey, so you can't always trust them if you're hoping to look for a leopard or a lion. Yes, they might be alarming, but it could be for something completely opposite to what you were looking for. And vervet monkeys. Yeah, vervies are, of course, the... I'm not spitting as I do that. Lucky I was doing it forward, otherwise I would have sprayed Dave with all my cob. So funny. So yeah, so there's lots of different animals that you can listen to. I suppose it also just depends on the degree that they're alarming. Baboons are another good one. So yeah, go-away birds, I used to trust them. That one has just broken my trust. I'll never forgive them. But let's find these elephants. Oh no, elephants screeching, trumpeting, you know, crying blue murder. Probably trust them and go and have a look as to what's actually startled them. Oh my goodness. Has Thamba dare put his head up? Is he starting to wake up from his slumber? I'm not sure, so let's go ask Steve.
Yes, he has indeed. His head is up, and his beautiful ears that everyone has told me about, which are so characteristic of him, with his steel blue eyes. What a beautiful cat. He's just posing for us now. The wind is steady, and so there's lots of movement in and around, and so I'm sure he's being a little bit wary of whatever might sort of try and sneak up on him, because the smell is quite strong, so it's wafting all over the place, and so he would be wise to keep his head up and to keep alert in case something comes in to steal his kill, and he would not want to get injured in the process. But he is a magnificent young male, and very, very relaxed. Still a little bit sleepy though. He's done all the hard work. Senzo said that if a hyena comes, he's going to jump off personally and chase it away, because he likes this leopard so much. Wouldn't that be a sight? And he is wearing his fancy white shoes this afternoon, so I'd really try and get that on camera. JK, that's an interesting question you ask. Over long periods, does the leopard population remain stable? Well, in general, in the savanna biome or in any ecosystem, the predator and prey relationship sort of is in flux. So as the prey animals increase, predators increase, and then after a serious drought you'll get a decrease in herbivores, and the prey or the predators will increase again. And then if that doesn't sort of rectify itself, then the predator animals will also decline again after time. So there's always this sort of like this graph of the prey animals going up and the predators slowly catching them, and then there's a bit of a dip, and then there's a dip. So it slowly moves like that. So in a natural system like this, there is a fluctuation, but we do see lots of leopard in the Sabi sands, but then there are lots of prey animals. So I'm sure the fluctuation is very slight, but you'd have to look over a period of about 50 years to really get sort of the up and down curve of that, and then you'd need to know every single animal. And we do know them here. The Sabi sands has got quite a good record of their cats, so I'm sure if after a period of time, I'm sure there's some work out there, there's a study done on the fluctuations of leopard dynamics in the Sabi sands, but that's because you've studied it so well. But it'll always sort of follow that prey up and down sort of mark. There's studies done with voles and foxes and all sorts of things all over the world, and they always sort of fluctuate with the prey animals, and that is generally the curve of a natural equilibrium, and we hope it will stay like that. But we are blessed to spend time with these cats, to spend time watching them daily lives. We've got a very healthy leopard population at the moment, and there are lots of Deka, Steenbok, lots of Kudu and Impala around, so there's plenty of food for the leopards. And to continue with that question, leopard are probably the most resilient of all the predators. So if any of the predators is going to decline, the leopard will be the last one to do so, because they're able to adapt to all sorts of changes. They'll even feed on termites and insects if need be. And as I've mentioned before, in places outside of Johannesburg, there are leopards, healthy populations of leopards that feed almost primarily off domestic pets. As sad as that might sound, and if you go to India, you have leopards living amongst the people, in and out of the cities. It is phenomenal how they survive, and they are able to adapt around people and to deal with the waste and whatever refuse we might have left off. And a lot of that has to do with domestic pets and maybe even small domestic animals as well. Very, very resilient. Isn't that a gorgeous face? Hello, sir. Very nice to meet you. It's not your first time, apart from this morning, Sen, seeing him? No, you've seen him plenty of times.
I saw him the first time when I came here.
Okay, so when Senzo came for the first time, when he arrived, it's the first time he saw him. So you've known him quite intimately. So yes, I'm amazed, because yesterday morning, Herbie, myself and Seb, we walked back to camp, and we walked pretty much through this area. We wouldn't have been too far from where he is now. I wonder how far left or right we might have been, but we were tracking a female leopard, and we weren't able to find her. Lo and behold, there was a male leopard here hiding the entire time. So talking about being on foot and walking through the wilderness, let's go over to Scott Dyson and see what he's up to.
Yes, just casually strolling through the wilds of Africa, having a jolly good time in this cool weather. So we found some tracks of the leopard that Steve actually saw this morning, or the tracks that he saw this morning, and we're going to do a big loop around this general area to try and see if we can't find any more fresh sign of that leopard, because the tracks that he had found were from before the rain, and we had rain yesterday afternoon as well as at midnight last night, which means we're quite far behind that leopard. It's not to say the leopard didn't move 50 meters from those tracks and make a kill, but we feel that let's rather search more widely through this area and see if we can't find any further sign. Purple, you would like to know if leopards ever come close to our camp, and yes, they certainly do. Actually, interestingly, Thamba has been very close to our camp recently. I saw him there not too long ago. And even yesterday morning, Nikki, my girlfriend, was woken up by some squirrels alarm calling. And they were probably alarm calling at Thamba, who was found later that evening, initially by the dam cam. And then today, with that Kudu kill. So he comes close to camp. My actual first day at Djuma, I'll never forget this. We weren't staying here at that stage. We stayed at another camp about an hour away. We drove in early in the morning, and I was being taken around by Alex, one of the tech guys, and he was showing me to the final control room. And we walked along the pathway from our accommodation to the final control room, and he showed me around there, and then we were walking back away from the final control room, and some of the game drive vehicles had headed out for safari, and they said, "Stop, there's a leopard." And Alex and I had walked straight past a female leopard called Kruger and a tiny baby impala that she had hoisted up in a tree. So clearly I was very rusty, didn't see any tracks, which there would have been, nor the impala in a tree. So that's in and around camp. It's not uncommon throughout the Sabi Sands for leopards to slink their way through camps, and often they actually like to give birth within the camp environs because they know many other predators will not feel safe in there, but they don't mind us. So we do get very lucky with leopards coming quite close to us. Of course, you do need to be a little bit careful. Good, we need to rush you off to Taylor, who's got a bird of prey.
Ooh, rushing off to me. Luckily, this bird is perched, so we have got a bit of an opportunity to view it. I don't know why I went, whoo. What's wrong with me? We have got what looks like a brown snook eagle sitting up in a dead knobthorn tree. And Kirsten says she thought I was being an owl. Ha ha ha. And you probably won't be able to hear it because it's quite windy where we are at the moment, but there's some guinea fowl that are alarming, and I would assume that they're alarming at the snake eagle. They probably were clever enough to look up and realize, whoop, we better be careful. Whether a snake eagle would go after a bird like that, I'm not sure. I've actually never seen a snake eagle eating a guinea fowl before, but I suppose if there's an opportunity to take something down like that, why not? But they predominantly eat reptiles, so from monitor lizards to snakes and agamas, eat a variety of those different things. But again, I suppose it wouldn't surprise me if it would catch a bird every now and then. But beautiful, very sharp hook on the edge of its beak just to help it tear through. And I suppose if you are hunting reptiles, it's a pretty good idea to have a sharp tip to your beak. And that skin is very, very, very tough. There, the guinea fowl are alarming again. I think it's actually looking down towards them when it looks to the left. Bon voyage! Off it goes. Not sticking around to be called out. And down it's gone. There we go. Even the go away bird went, go away! All shouting as the bird was sort of flying around. Not a good area for a snake eagle, though I don't think it's going to find too much of its favorite food on a day like today where it's quite chilly. Although we've already seen a snake. I don't know. These animals are sliding in the sand. So we've just checked Triple M, which is a road. And Safari Wild Man with all the jokes. You said Taylor may not be an owl, but she's a hoot. You know what? I'm gonna have to download the sound effect app again. I had to delete it because I didn't have any space, and well, I don't know why I didn't really use it in the Mara, but you know, I feel like Djuma's the place for, you know, all the corny jokes. So keep them coming, we'll love them. And so we're kind of doing a bit of a boundary patrol now. I don't know how much luck we're really going to have with finding tracks because it's been exceptionally windy. We were lucky this morning during the sunrise safari where it was nice and quite cool. So we will have a look at some of the favorite spots that leopards typically cross in. I think we might even go all the way down to Cheetah Cut Line, seeing as though I'm having no luck with elephants this afternoon. So that's what we'll probably do. And of course, if we see anything interesting along the way, well, we'll definitely stop and have a little look. But it's a bit sad that it's a little bit on the quiet side, but you can't win all the safaris, can you? Sometimes it's nice to just appreciate all the scenery and just being out in the bush. Djuma, you've just asked me, and I'm offended, if I've got my stuffed elephant with me. His name is Maurice, and of course I've got him. Here he is. Maurice, you've got a bit of a twig on his face, my bad. But, yes. What does that sound? Sorry, I heard a strange sound coming from underneath the car, and I just thought I'd check. Are you a mechanic? No, he's still quite young. Anyways, yes, so Maurice is there. Maurice can go in the cupboard because it's quite cold, and he didn't bring a jersey with him this afternoon. He was silly. So yeah, so there's Maurice. He comes out on safari with me. Sometimes he's lucky enough when his ego isn't enhanced too much. He comes out of the camera box, otherwise he stays in the camera box. Felt terrible. I left him in the camera box for the entire holiday. Squirrels alarming, but we don't trust them, remember? We don't trust squirrels, but we must have a look. Because I'll be very upset. Imagine if we find a leopard, the squirrel is shouting that there's a leopard, and then we don't. Okay, well, we're doing a bit of investigating. Perhaps we'll poke our nose on in here. Maybe I'll go for a walk. Steve has moved on from Thamba. Maybe he'll return later. Let's go see where he's off to next.
Thank you, Taylor. Yes, indeed. We just made some space for some other vehicles to come in and have a look at that beautiful cat. And I thought, while we still have some light, I'll come and show you Untitled Dam. I know we had a bit of a dam mission this morning. See if we can have a look at this one. And thanks to all of you who took your photos. There were some comparisons, and at least twin dams looked a little bit different. So I'm sure there has been some water. And here we are arriving at Untitled Dam. And there are some vultures down in the mud. How's that for your sense? Oh, sorry about the roof, folks. Don't want to chase this vulture. I don't want to fall down the slope either. There we go. Is that good? There we go. It's a white-back vulture, also known as a griffin. And even though everyone thinks they're quite gross and disgusting birds, they are actually quite clean. Oh, there he goes. Quite clean, and often will spend quite a fair amount of time in the afternoon cleaning themselves in the water, and then they'll jump up on the branch like they're doing now. There's a hooded vulture. Jump up on the branch like that after cleaning themselves to dry themselves in the afternoon sun. But it seemed to me as if those vultures were just drinking, because they don't look wet. It's possible they know that it's quite a cool evening. They didn't want to get themselves chilly, because you're full of down, feathers, and if you get wet without any or sufficient amount of sunshine, you're going to go to bed wet, and we all know that is not a good idea, if you can help it. I'm sure they all got a good soaking last night from the rain. Cenac, no, it's not uncommon for them to play. I've never seen them playing in the mud, so to speak. They often are in and around water. So we just missed what they were doing there. I think they were drinking, but it's very, very common to find vultures near water in the afternoon as they clean and bath themselves. So there we have two hooded vultures, the most reliable vulture in my opinion for when it comes to finding a predator. Ravinda would like to know how many species of vulture. So here's the hooded vulture. The other one was the white-headed. Was the white-backed. We also get the white-headed. We also get the Cape vulture, and then lastly is the lappet-faced vulture. I think so. That's 5 species, which are quite common to the Kruger National Park, with the whiteback being the most abundant and the most common of all of those species. Cape vulture and the lappet-faced vulture are actually regarded as vulnerable and endangered due to habitat loss and the fact that certain farmers think that vultures are responsible for killing their lambs. They set out poisons and they kill the birds, which is quite a terrible story. And also traditionally, some of the sangomas, the traditional healers, believe that if you get the foot of a vulture, you can get very, very lucky, and so it is quite a sought after item. And if you want to win the lotto, apparently a vulture's foot is what you need, because they've got such good eyesight, they can see into the future, and you'll be able to predict the numbers to pick for your lotto draw card. Terrible as it might sound, but it is a traditional thing that they believe, not the fact that the lotto, but the lucky side of it. And unfortunately, that all comes into play. Wonderful. Untitled Dam is looking very sparse from a water point of view. Coast Rider, I don't know. I've never seen a vulture doing a dust bath. I've never seen them dust bathing. I've never actually even seen them preening. I'm sure they do. They must have a preen gland, so it's possible that they do dust bath, but I've never seen it. I have often seen them in the water and often seen them sunning themselves, opening their wings to the sun, and the sun not only dries them, it also kills the bacteria that they accumulate inside of their feathers and on their face. But no, that's a good question. I've never seen them dust bath. Marvelous. We're going to move on from here, go a little bit further south. We will be coming back towards Thamba a little bit later. Maybe he'll be doing some dinner munching. And while we do so, let's go over to Scott, who I believe is still busy tracking.
Yeah, we're still trying to work out what's going on here with the leopard on the eastern boundary, but I've stopped to take in the beautiful view out to the west as we go along. No further updates really, and we'll just keep marching along and covering as much ground as we can, and hopefully something will pop up, or at least some information will pop up. It will help fine-tune our search. Now, we've also come across some tracks of a male leopard in this area. Judging from the history over the last few weeks and months, my money would be on either Hosanna, a young male leopard, or the older dominant male called Tingana. And both of them have been kind of frequenting this eastern portion of our area. So one of them's on the property, came on early last night. I've got a feeling it's Tingana, I'm not too sure why. Just a bit of a gut feel, but it could be either of those two. And the last tracks we had of him was actually coming up this road towards us. So hopefully we'll get lucky with a few more tracks. If not, maybe we'll bump into Tundi. Taylor last had her tracks heading south in this direction. David, you would like to know what a leopard sounds like? Well, like a lot of the cats, they've got different types of vocalizations. Some soft kind of ow, ow, when mom's trying to call the cub. The mother and also males will do something called chuffing, which is kind of just like breathing really quickly outwards. Something like that. So chuffing is another thing that leopard will use to communicate with one another in close quarters. And then you get the leopard rasp, which is their main form of long-distance vocalization. And it sounds like you're cutting through a piece of wood with a wood saw. About 5 or 6 of those. Very telltale call, wonderful noise, and hopefully we'll hear that, because if we hear that, then we know we'll be able to find it. We actually, none of us, I don't think, have heard the Hukumuri male call yet, so that'll be something nice to document, and it's something that is going to happen at some point in time. We just haven't been lucky enough to see it just yet, I don't think. Hopefully not on foot, Seb says, but I'll argue he's actually quite relaxed on foot. And the very first time we saw him, we were on foot. And we found his tracks on the road, and were very excited by the fact that we had some leopard tracks. And they veered off the road, and as we took 2 steps off the road, he came running down from a termite mound not too far from us, and then lay up quite nearby. And I hadn't spent much time in the area. It was when I just got back to Djuma in early December last year, and Herbie thought, oh, it must be Hosanna, because he lay down very nearby. And after a while we realized, hang on, this isn't Hosanna. He gave us a little bit of a charge and then veered off, and then Tristan came in, established the sighting, and did in fact work out that it was not the boy we thought it was. And the rest is history. We've got to know him a lot better over the last few months. Good stuff. We're going to continue searching about and send you across to Taylor. I'm not too sure what's happening with her.
Thank you very much, Scotty. And we have found ourselves a very large herd of impala. And so to jump back onto the discussion before about leopard population fluctuations, we have got an enormous number of small, medium-sized antelope in Djuma and in the Kruger National Park, and the impala is the favorite food of lion, leopard, and wild dog. So while these numbers are very, very healthy and very, very dominating, we will always have a good population of predators, which is wonderful. And most people look at the impala and think, oh, What a waste of time. But in my opinion, they are probably one of the most gorgeous antelope out there, and they have not needed to evolve in over 6 million years because they are just so good. You can see that most of their heads are down. Being in a herd like this enables them to have one or two looking out while the rest are feeding, and they have got a cleft lip which enables them to feed right down to the ground. So at the moment they are feeding on absolutely anything. With their small mouth parts, they are selectively feeding on the best bits available. And as time goes by, when the conditions start to get poorer, they will switch from a diet of grass to a diet of leaves. But then any new shoots and forbs that pop out on the ground, the impala are able to graze right down, which is quite a good adaptation. The mixed feeding is also a very, very good benefit for them. It means when all the grass is gone, they can switch. And it also means they can feed on leaves when the leaves are new and are doing quite well. So very, very selective feeder, but also a very, very successful one. And you can tell by the numbers of impala that they do very, very well. The survival of the fittest. What does the term survival of the fittest mean? Not to be the biggest and strongest only. Surely you're the biggest and strongest. If you look at sable antelope are probably the biggest, and not the biggest, but probably one of the strongest and most dominant antelope out there, but yet their numbers have declined drastically. And that has got to do with breeding. Survival of the fittest means you are strong, but you're also a successful breeder. So impala will basically almost double in number every year, which is a phenomenal feat. And their adaptation to predators and the survival of the youngsters by flooding the market with chicks, not with chicks, with lambs at the same time, allows them to boost their numbers quite dramatically. Whereas animals like sable and others such as roan, which are regarded as sort of rare and endangered species these days, a lot of that's got to do with the manipulation of the habitat and the fact that they would leave their calves far away from water, 15 kilometers or so, and then travel all that distance to drink. And a sable antelope, male or female, are very difficult for a lion to kill. Very, very difficult. But it's not the fact that the animal itself is difficult to kill. The fact is that they leave their youngster unattended, and there are hyena and leopard lurking, and the youngsters do not survive. So although the sable is a very strong and successful adult, the youngsters have not come through, and the population have declined accordingly. Isn't she beautiful? I love spending time with impala. Mo would like to know if this herd is led by a male or multiple. The breeding has not happened yet. What we will see soon in the next month, maybe in the next week or two, is the females are going to start sort of coming into estrus, and the males are going to start demarcating territories or leks. And you can see, if you just pan over to the right there, Sens, that there's two males there. Just punch in there. Are those two? They're busy feeding at the moment, but in the coming weeks, they're going to find each other very distasteful, and they're not going to want to spend any time around each other, and they're going to start fighting. They're going to start building up the neck muscles, and they're going to start calling with that very loud rumble of a call, which sounds like a roaring animal. I will play it for you shortly if you like. And then they will demarcate sort of areas, and then selectively the females will stay in those areas, but the strongest male will have the best territory, which means the best food and access to water. So these females will move in response to food, and as they come into that male's sort of territory, he will try and keep them in there as long as possible. But we're still a little while off that. It's going to start happening in the next month or so. Sort of April, May is the peak of, or May is the peak of the breeding for the impala females. And during April, the males start roaring, and that roar, should I maybe find it for you? If you haven't heard it before, it is the craziest sound in the African bush. And that call, or that rumble that they do, is actually aimed to stimulate the ovulation of the female. I believe red deer in North America are a very similar sort of thing. They do this very crazy roar. Okay, so have a listen to this. If you think this sounds like an antelope or don't, first time I was out in the bush and I heard this, I thought something was coming to eat me. Isn't that the craziest thing you've ever heard? That was a group of males running around, snorting at each other, posturing, tails out, running in circles and roaring. And then the males that are bigger and stronger will end up turning and fighting with each other. Can you see that one is busy wiping pre-orbital gland on the bush? I don't think you can see the horns are a bit pointed in. He's not in his prime yet, but he's definitely practicing some form of scent marking. And there he goes. A little bit of a lump in the throat. Oh, that was an oxpecker. Oxpeckers are loving the impala. They are the smallest antelope that allow oxpeckers on them. And I was very surprised to see an oxpecker on a warthog yesterday, or this morning. I've never seen an oxpecker on a warthog. Wonder if any of you back home have. But these impala all seem to know that the predator is not very close by, even though Thamba is about maybe half a kilometer from where they are feeding. But maybe they know he is occupied and they are very comfortable in the open. Even though the wind is swirling, they don't seem to be too concerned with the nyala rams or bulls in there. Also enjoy. David would like to know if impala are eaten by locals, and basically there used to be a huge rations portion. Impala were culled on many of the reserves in the Kruger Park and around, and they were given to staff as rations because they're such a prevalent animal. But I'm not sure what is going on these days. Some of the landowners potentially, I'm not sure in the Sabi Sands. I know in the Timbavati, which is a private reserve north of here, they still actively cull impala for meat, which they give to their staff, and they also use for making biltong. It's a very nice biltong, for those of you who eat meat. It's a very nice game meat, actually. Back in the day when I did enjoy my meat, impala was very, very good. There's not much fat on it at all. Very lean, and it doesn't have that very gamey sort of flavor that you'll find in deer. But there is a 2-year-old impala. You see the horns are just coming together. He was born the year before last. And he will be chased out as soon as these males start displaying and taking over territory. Those younger males will be chased away because they obviously... And there's a baby. They're just walking past on the left of the screen. He just had 2 little snubs of horns. He was born in November. Okay, so we're going to move on from our very nice herd of impala and go back over to Scotty D, who's still on foot.
Still strolling about, still no major updates, but happy just to be out here on foot on this cool afternoon. It's quite windy, so we are kind of taking it slowly. I have been, no worries, Seb nearly walked into a bush, so I had to change his route. I'm using my little ash bag to test the wind as we go, just to make sure in case we do bump into any elephants or possibly dangerous game, we know what the wind's doing. Very important to keep track of the wind. Take care. You would like to know if the animals in the Mara vocalize differently to the animals here on Djuma. The only animal that comes to mind is the pearl-spotted owlets. They've got a slightly different call up in Kenya than they do here in South Africa. They don't tend to, here they'll go, whereas up in Kenya I've noticed they just do that initial part of the call. They don't do the kind of prolonged. So that was one thing I've noticed in my time up in Kenya, but other than that it's all fairly similar. Can't think of any major differences. Yeah. So that's that. I know you're discussing alarm calls with Taylor a little bit earlier and what she thinks is her most reliable animals. She said the antelope, impala, kudu and nyala. For me, it's the vervet monkeys. I love vervet monkeys when they alarm call. The reason being is they're often perched up in trees, so it's easy to spot them, and they can also see quite far, which means they're kind of more effective to some degree than some of the antelope, because they, like I said, can be up a tree and be alarm calling at a leopard 500 meters, even a kilometer away. I'll never forget once in my early guiding days in the southern Sabi sands, I'd taken my guests out for a morning bushwalk. We had driven from camp, parked under a lone marula tree in a big open clearing so that the vehicle was nice and cool in the shade when we got back to it. You didn't burn your bottoms on the seats when you hop back on. And we were about a kilometer, 3/4 of a mile away from the vehicle when we heard some monkeys alarm calling very close to where we were. I could see the monkeys, and they were looking down in this direction, the same direction as the vehicle, but I mean, we were obviously looking very close by, thinking, where's this animal? It must be right here. And after a while, we scratched around and didn't find anything, and just thought, oh well, you know, it's time to head on back. Not too sure where this predator's gone. And when we got about 100 meters away from the car, we noticed the leopard was up the tree, right above the vehicle. How cool is that? So that was, for me, my first lesson as to how far monkeys can alarm call. We ended up just slowly walking to the tree, and the leopard came down and moved off. We hopped in the vehicle and then followed on with our business, spent some time with her, and then headed back to camp. Thought I heard something there, but I think it was just a gust of wind that came through and rustled some leaves. So I stopped for a second. I thought maybe there were some elephants nearby. Good stuff. We're heading now deeper into an area again where hopefully we're going to find some sign of Thandi. And while we do that, we're going to send you back across to Taylor.
Well, we were very excited to arrive at Chitwa Dam because we've got the 4 orcas and their parents, the Egyptian geese, as they're going for a little bit of a swim. For those of you that don't understand what I'm talking about, if you look very closely at those goslings, you'll see that their backsides kind of look like killer whales. And ever since Tristan said that, I can't get it out of my head, and I feel the need to mention it. But you can see it most when they're outside of the water. And oh, it was a viewer that said it, sorry, and then Tristan stole it. Sounds about right. Only saying that because Tristan's not here. He's not even in the country to defend himself. Anyways, but then let me tell you what else happened. David starts shouting, elephant swimming! Woo! And got really excited, so I obviously dropped the clutch and off we went racing to see the elephant swimming. Not even one elephant here. Not even one. There's hippos, though. There was a hippo that was standing out of the water. But it might have actually been this one that was standing out of the water. And it did kind of look like an elephant. And there's a little baby potamus, too. So that's what we call them. We call the adults hippos and the babies potamuses. They become happy Kirsten has said they're ellipotamuses. I suppose they could be ellipotamuses. But yes. Oh, that little one is precious. They always look like they're smiling from this angle when you look at them head on. Not the adults, the little ones. Always look so happy. It's very cold all of a sudden. The wind has definitely got a chill in it. And I'm going to try and guess the temperature now because it's my favorite thing to do in the afternoons. You can hear the wind. I believe you can all hear the wind. I don't know why I felt the need to repeat you can hear the wind when it was fed into my ear. Oh, are you flossing? Is that how hippos floss? No, that's how they thrash around. So what I was going to say is I was going to try and guess the temperature. I think it must be about between 19 and 22 degrees Celsius. The weather's going to lie to us, so it's going to tell us that it's still 29. I know it. It is, but now I feel like, but is the weather temperature including the wind chill factor? Okay, if we had to minus the wind away, I'm going to say it's about 24 degrees. That little hippo is very excited. That's my final guess. I know I'm wrong. Kirsten's like a talk show host. You know, when they try and give you a second chance and they're like, is that your final answer? $26! Absolute lies. I'm telling you right now, that's not what the temperature is. I've had to put both my jerseys on this afternoon. It's very cold down here at the dam. Anyways, the hippos seem to be enjoying it. They're all full of beans. Especially that little one ramming into mom. goodness, leave her alone. Give her a bit of a break. And Radeep, you're actually wondering, and you're only 6 years old, this is a pretty cool question, and you're wondering if this little hippo will listen to its mom and dad. Probably not. I think that the little animals just do what they want, and mom obviously gets tired of repeating herself. Maybe your mom is also nodding her head going, I know, I completely understand. I know my mom would agree to that. So no, that because they're so little, they're curious, all different sights, all different smells and cool things in the water, especially with the hippos. I think that they're a little bit rebellious at times, and then they just go and do whatever they want. Especially now when they start to wake up, all the hippos are getting excited. Probably would have been sleeping or trying to sleep, at least during most of the day. But it's all happening now. It's all starting to liven up at the dam, especially that cow. I think she's having a good old scratch every now and then when she moves up against that fallen tree. Are you going to roll around? I love it when they roll around and show their feet. Yes! And a swish of the tail to end it off. You get 11 out of 10 for that move. It was kind of like a 180. And then the other little one at the back, I think, is trying to stand on another hippopotamus. And it goes under. They're all having the best time, aren't they? I wonder if they're standing on the roots of that tree. I don't know if there's quite an island there. But they do hang around this area quite a bit. And hippos, when they can, will prefer shallow water and a steep bank that will drop down into deep water if they do feel threatened. They can get away. Now, the emperor who has no clothes, don't worry. I shall buy you a pair of pants. You're wondering if it's true that if hippos get sunburnt. Yes, they do. Even though they look like they've got pretty thick skin, they don't. The epidermis is quite thin, only a couple of millimeters thick. And so they have to secrete a substance which we call hipposudoric acid, or blood sweat is what it's commonly known as too, because it kind of looks like blood. It's pink in color all over their bodies. And in that hipposudoric acid, it's quite an oily substance, firstly, and it contains a mild sunblock and also an antiseptic, so that will help prevent them from getting sunburned. But they'll try and stay submerged underwater for most of the day, although a hippo absolutely loves to sunbathe. There we go. Here we've got 3 little hippos mouthing one another, and then another adult popping up in between. Oh, you could really just sit here for hours when they are playful. When they're sleeping, only about 5 minutes. All rolling around and thrashing. We have yet to see the hippos leave Chitwa Dam, though. I still haven't got that, and I've been saying that ever since we've been able to traverse on Chitwa, that I would love to come and sit and watch all the hippos leave the dam and see which routes they take, how many go together, how many do their own thing. Some more commotion. They're not too vocal, just every now and then letting off the yell. And just in case you thought that was a real hippo, it wasn't. My calls are just that good. I'm joking, that was really terrible. I don't know if anybody in camp... I don't know if in camp if anybody can actually do a proper hippo call. But of course, another sarcastic remark by Kirsty, which is such a surprise. She doesn't do those often. She said that everybody in Final Control was convinced it was a real hippo. Oh, they've been great, though, opening their mouths. Now, normally that's a threat display, but it's a common behavior to see as the sun goes down, as they start to get all active. Or I feel like they're a little bit early this evening, but it is nice and cool. Awesome. I think we might hang around the hippos for a bit longer, see what they get up to. Steve has beat me, and he's found the animal I've been searching for all afternoon.
Thank you, Taylor. Yes, we have found a female, and she's just hidden behind her a very small little baby. Hopefully we'll get to see it now, but it is very, very small. and super cute, and she seems to be on her own, which is not very normal for a female. Now she's trying to figure out what it is we want. Having a little sniff. Just go down a bit, sense. There's the trunk. Oh, it's hiding. It's hiding. There it comes again. Their mom is busy smashing a red bush willow bush. And there's the little trunk. It's trying to pick up something that mom dropped. Oh my word. Look at it. It has no idea how to use that trunk. It can probably only use a few of the mussels out of the 100,000 or so that occur there. But this female is quite relaxed, so hopefully she'll move a little bit more into the open, and then we'll be able to see that beautiful calf. But the calf is hidden from view at the moment. Maybe we'll see her. She's underneath mum. But this buffalo grass here, Sense, you want to go move that grass for me quickly? I'm only joking. There you can see its bottom. It's still very hairy on the back. Oh, hello. And the ears are very flat to the body. Jocelyn, I'm not sure if this is the one you've seen the last couple of days. It's possible. Was it a female on her own, or was she in a herd? Because it seems as if this female is not. Oh, hello. She's smelling mum, trying to figure out what mum's doing. This one is probably a few weeks old, maybe a month at least. I think the one Taylor was talking about was brand spanking new, with a bit more dark hair on the body. But this is still a very young individual. You can still see the hairs. Very cute. Very cute. And followed, as always, by a fork-tailed drongo. Oh, hello, gorgeous. Oh, I love baby elephants. There's just something so special about them. He's disappearing into the long grass. That was marvelous. That was marvelous. I don't know if you can hear off to the left. I can't see it yet, but there is the territorial drumming of what I think is a bearded woodpecker. Let's see if we can hear it again. It's been going on for a few minutes. They like to find a dead tree that's got some nice acoustics to it, and they'll smash their face on it or their beak in a behavior very well known as drumming. And obviously, as soon as we start looking, we can't see it or hear it again. Very loud sound. I believe, James, you can hear the Natal spurfowl there shouting. Doesn't seem to be any reason for it shouting at the moment. I can see it. But I believe, James... Oh, what have you got there? Red-faced mouse birds. Very good, Sens. They're a very cool bird. Another sort of cooperative breeder, always found in groups. So I think this is the first group I've seen in Djuma. The speckled seems to be a little bit more common. That beautiful long tail and the red face. The speckled look very similar, but obviously don't have the red face, which makes it easy to identify. But when they are flying in a group, the red-faced mousebirds fly as one group, and the speckled fly one at a time from tree to tree. So all you see is this long-tailed brown bird flying over your head, and that is an easy way to identify them. I hope I haven't mixed that up, but that is what I do remember. Any of my students out there watching might be giving me some insults if I've gotten that wrong. Is it something that I drilled into them? Very common in South Africa, found all over. And they enjoy lots of fruit, some seeds, and they'll also eat the little root or shoot tips, brand new shoot tips off of the plants. Cara, new bird for you, well done. Add that to your Djuma list. And they're always found in groups. I've never seen them individually. but they breed cooperatively. Even though they are monogamous, they will assist each other, and they will build an untidy nest. There we go. See how they're flying off? Oh, mama, what happened there? You see how they flew off as a group? The speckled will fly off as one. And that mama, I don't know why she screamed. Did you hear that? There's always quite a daunting sound hearing an elephant scream like that. And for what reason, I don't know. She still seems to be feeding. Maybe the youngster did something she shouldn't have done, and Mom gave her little warning. But fantastic. The bearded woodpecker has disappeared from sight and sound. And we will continue on, see what else we can see. We're making a bit of a tour of the dams, and then we're going to go straight back to Thamba. But because the wind is blowing like this, it's a very good chance we might find a cat, a leopard or lion walking along the road, because this is ideal conditions for them. It's nice and cool. I've even got one of my little jerseys on. Such a contrast from yesterday, which is what's so wonderful about being out here, is you get those really hot, sweaty days, and then you wear jackets the next day. So while we continue on towards the next dam and place of interest, we're going to go back over to Scott, who I believe is at a pan.
Yes, we are at a small pan, a pan that we know Thandi has drank from on numerous occasions. And we got very excited when we arrived here, because we did find some tracks of a leopard drinking right where I'm positioned now. It had both of its paws on the ground over here, and it would have been taking a drink. But it's not the leopard we're looking for. Not that we matter, not that we mind, though. We'll take any leopard we can get. But these are the tracks of a male. Now, I wonder if it's not the same tracks of another male that we saw not too far from here. It could well be. He ended up heading north away from this little puddle. And it's very difficult to tell the freshness, but often a good way of kind of judging is by kind of pushing your finger into the track and seeing what it kind of looks at after you've pushed your finger in. And when I do that, and when Herbie does that, we both feel that it is from kind of some time today, maybe the early morning, maybe midday, hard to be certain. But at least we know that a male leopard did take a drink here at some point in the last kind of 12 hours or so. Now we need to try and work out where exactly he's ended up. So we're going to continue away in a northerly direction, where he's moved from here, and see if we don't get lucky with any more tracks, and send you back to Taylor with the hippos at Chitwa.
There's been quite a bit of action, and I think we might see some more of it in a little bit if we're patient. There was a dispute amongst two hippos. Don't know if they were males or females. It's pretty hard to tell, but whatever was happening there. Actually, that one over there, the one that did the splashing, you can see its back sticking out. That is the troublemaker. So I don't know if that's a bull or if it's a cow, but this is the one that keeps thrashing about and causing all sorts of havoc within the pod. Other than that, the wind is just picking up even more. Can you believe it? It's not going to be a very pleasant evening, that's for sure. Now, Purple, you're wondering what is the size of a hippo when it's hippo's mouth when it opens it? Well, for an adult, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's about 3 feet, about a meter. It's massive. That'll be for a fully grown hippopotami, probably for a bull. It really, really is big. I reckon if a hippo had to open its mouth that wide, I might almost be able to fit inside. Maybe I'd get a little bit stuck, but I'm sure I could wiggle my way down to its belly. But it's enormous is what I'm trying to say. I don't think there's any other animal on, land mammal, because of course even though they're in the water, they do spend quite a bit of time out to the water at night grazing, and sometimes on nice cool days, or well, if you're in Kenya or in Zambia, they just graze whenever they want. No, I completely forgot what was I saying? Oh, I cannot believe I've just done that. I've got the worst goldfish memory in the whole wide world. I'm so sorry, everyone. Kirsten, were you listening to what I was saying? Can you remember what I was talking about? Let's pass the test on. No, I feel like I'd moved on from the open wide thing. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm so sorry, everybody. This happens to me all the time. It's the worst thing in the whole world. Oh, well. We'll listen to the hippos calling. That's nice. I was hoping they were going to do it a little bit longer so that you'd all get distracted by it and forget the what I was talking about. That's terribly embarrassing. Oh, well. Moving on swiftly. Look at them all rolling around. Now, they do spend quite a bit of time in the water, which I think what I was getting at. Oh, David, look over there. There's a little baby hippopotamus that's come out. And Tom, you've said hippos must be the cleanest. So those are waterback. Even further to the left on the other bank. Yeah. To where the crocodiles normally live, on that island. There's a look. It's so cute. It's so small. There we go. David's on it. The big blob, says Kirst. Yes, that thing. Look at it. It's just come out the water. So yes, Tom, I kind of do agree with you in saying they must be the cleanest animals alive because of all the time they spend. Look at all those wrinkles. Have you ever seen something so cute in your entire life? You can't tell me that a hippopotamus is not cute. I would love to have a baby hippopotamus in camp. That would be amazing. But if we think looking after Gregory, the Speaks Hinge tortoise, is hard work, can you imagine? Oh, going back to Mum. Oh, look at that little nudge. Is that what you call a hippo kiss? Very excited to see Mum. And also I've noticed that Mum is kept away from the bulk of the pod. Just hanging around in that corner is probably very nice, just deep enough for her to cover herself and keep cool and keep out of the sun, but then also shallow enough that that little one needs to stand in the water it can. Let's see where she's going to go with it. Not too deep now. That was a very young one. It's only a few months old, that. Very precious. Now, we've seen the hippos opening their mouths quite a bit tonight, and I said that it's often a threat display. And that sort of ties in with David's question. And I'm going to distract you because there's a brand new waterbuck calf right on 12 o'clock. Look how tiny that thing is. Sorry, I just spotted it, and it's also precious. These are we're looking at little things. So, David, things that would threaten a hippo could be anything like a lion. Even a large group of hyenas. When a hippo is outside the water, and say, for instance, that young calf that we were looking at, even just one hippo might hassle a cow and upset her slightly. So prides lions would be a big threat. Even crocodiles at some times, but they have sort of an unspoken rule of you leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. Sorry, David, I'm pointing at all sorts of things. Here comes a gymnogene. Let's see. Oh, landing on the buffalo weaver's nests. There's a bird. I know a lot of you are fond of the African harrier hawk. They are stunning creatures with that bright yellow skin around their face, the grey plumage and the black sort of spots and decorations on the tip of the wings. There we go. There's a red-billed buffalo weaver there on the side, not happy at all. What they might do is come out and mob it to try and deter it. So they're not really going to be injuring the African harrier hawk too much, but it's more of just a nuisance thing. But let's see. Now, these birds are notorious nest raiders. They've got incredibly nimble legs that they can bring in at all sorts of directions and actually reach quite far into nests and grab chicks. Oh, look, it's looking, it's searching. That red-billed buffalo weaver is not doing anything. Perhaps it knows. Maybe it's laughing, going, ha, 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 we don't have any chicks. Maybe that's what it's saying, and that's why it's not so panicked. No one in that tree is actually giving an alarm call at all, which is quite surprising. Well, it's all happening down at Chitwa Dam this afternoon, a place that you all definitely need to come and visit. It's spectacular. The lodge is beautiful. Of course, you get to wake up to all the wonderful animals. You get to hear the dinosaurs, aka the hippos, at night when they fight. You get to see African harrier hawks raiding buffalo weaver nests. Also pretty spectacular. Lots of African fish eagles too. And Vladimir and Boris, the crocodiles. And Snappy, the new crocodile. What are you doing? I kind of wish we could get onto the other side. And we can't because our car can't go in water. It's definitely looking around there. A couple more buffalo weavers coming in to sort of suss out what's going on. I find it unusual that nobody's reacting. normally they're squawking, mobbing. They seem quite content. It's like they're kind of having the last laugh. Now, with these buffalo weaver nests, there are so many entrances and exits, and they're fake sort of entrances too. And because they make their nests with thorns, this is a natural deterrent already to a bird of prey. But let's see, perhaps this African harrier hawk is an expert and has been raiding buffalo weaver nests for a very long time and knows the trick. See, I don't know if it's maybe trying to find a chamber that actually goes to a point rather than one of these sort of false entrances that they can have.